my name's Jasmine and I'm going to be customizing more squishies. I'm really excited about today's episode because these squishies are going to be inspired by Splatoon. I love Nintendo and Splatoon has got to be my favorite Nintendo IP. The game is just so iconic and stylized, and so I'm just excited to see where that takes me, and so let's just jump straight into things. For my first squishy, I'm starting out with this panda bun. It's got a simple round shape and that's going to be perfect for my idea because I want to make the golden eggs from Salmon Run. What happens in this mode is you are trying to collect enough golden eggs by the end of your shift, and you can get these from killing the boss salmonoids. I've always thought the golden eggs look really cool and the colors are just kind of like delicious on them. This was kind of a no-brainer for me to turn into a squishy. Now that I've got it all prepped, I'm going in with some yellow straight from the tube. I'm coloring the squishy yellow, but I'm just going to fill in a circle of this, leaving a white edge. This means from the front it'll have that nice white outline by it. It blends into the background a little too well. Whoops. But this needs a little bit more detail, so I'm going to take some white and I'm going to add that to the very center and just kind of blend it out. Once I have my highlight in the center, I take some orange and I'm going to add that to what I consider the top. So on the golden egg, there's like an orangey yellow goo that the skeleton fish is swimming in. And so I really wanted to bring in that orange. I just took a little bit and added it to the top and kind of blended it out. Once I had finished the goop from inside the salmon egg, I was able to focus on the little salmon skeleton itself. I did a sketch off camera and I just filled that in with this orange color. I had a hard time thinking of how to make this 3D model look good with my 2D paint job. I think just having the silhouette of it works really well. I really like this orange color, but I decided that I wanted it to look a bit more shiny, and so I went over it with a thin layer of gold. I don't know how necessary this was. The orange looked good as it was, but I still like how the gold added to it a little bit, so I don't know which one I like more, but this is what I went with, was a little bit of metallic on top. Then it was time to add the eye. I started with the whites, and once that was dry, I was able to add the little pupil. I mixed in a little bit of brown, so it was just like a bit separated from the skeleton color. And then finally, I needed this to look a lot more shiny and sparkly, and so I just added a ton of sparkles. I especially like how the little star ones turned out. I still needed to add my signature, but I added that to the back side so it wouldn't interfere with the design. And now we have the finished golden egg. I think this turned out really cute. I was actually so obsessed with how this turned out that I made more of them. In Salmon Run, when you kill the boss salmonoid, it drops 3 golden eggs, and so I wanted to complete the trio. I didn't have any more of this size of panda bun, so I made 2 small golden eggs. I wish they were all the same size. On the new ones, I made the orange a lot more intense in the goo, and that looks so nice. That was the one thing I changed between these designs. I think these are really, really cute. For the next squishy, the shape is so specific, I'm gonna have to make it by hand because I don't have any other squishies that I can kind of turn into it. This squishy is going to be the squid form of the Inkling, and I wanted it to be more simplified. There are a few different versions of the squid form. There's the one in-game that has these long tentacles, but I wanted to keep this as simple as possible because this was going to be a lot of sculpting, which I haven't done too much of, so I was trying to not throw myself in the deep end. The shape was so big that it was actually pretty difficult to cut it out with my scissors. So what I ended up doing for this is doing little trims down along the outline that I made, and then once it got low enough I could separate it from the block of foam. I did this until I created my Inkling shape. Once the shape was kind of there, we began the long process of smoothing everything out. For my materials I used foam, and foam is not really slow rising at all. But the reason I did this is because foam is way cheaper than like buying a big squishy that I could use as like scrap foam. Or it's even cheaper than just getting a memory foam pillow. So I paid $7 for a huge hunk of foam, and the foam that I used to make this squishy here was probably only like an eighth of all the foam that I bought. So it's definitely a lot cheaper, but it's not slow rise. I mean, it is soft, but that softness kind of went away once I smoothed it out with puffy paint. One thing about using foam is that it has a very porous texture, but the only way to really cover up that porous texture is to cover it up with puffy paint. And so I went through quite a few bottles of puffy paint smoothing out this squishy. And so as I'm putting on just this first layer, I could see just how much the foam is soaking it up. It's just kind of going into all of those little holes that make up the foam. And so this is going to take a lot of coats of paint. I'm kind of trying to lay on the layers thick so I won't have to do as many layers. And so it's just way easier to do that with a popsicle stick. Oh, and here's a little trick for getting more out of your puffy paint. This bottle I can't squeeze anything more out of, and so if you cut it in half, you're able to get all of the paint out from inside there. Another trick is when you're using puffy paint, it usually has this little nozzle. You have to squeeze a lot harder to get it to come through that little tiny point there, and so I usually just cut it off so that I don't have to fight with the bottle and I can just get out a bunch of puffy paint really easily. Alright, one side now has the nice smooth texture I was going for, so let's just do that on the other side real quick. With all of these coats of puffy paint done, I finally have a smooth enough texture for me to start my paint job. I want a nice base coat, so let's just get that done real quick, and now I'm able to go in with my blue. I want this to be a blue Inkling. One of my favorite things about the Inklings and Octolings is that they always seem to have like some kind of ombre on the tentacles. And so for this blue squishy, I added a purple ombre. My camera was really not picking this up for some reason. I don't know if it has to do with the saturation or my camera settings, or I don't really understand it, but it just wasn't picking up the color. So I have all this footage of me painting this ombre, and it looks like I'm just putting more blue on. But trust me, it's coming along. I've added purple to the ends of the little tentacles there, and I also added some purple to the corners of the head. It kind of like reminds me of blush a little bit. And this is my favorite detail. There's like a speckling of the other color on the tentacles, and so I added these purple dots to the tentacles, and I put a few on the cheeks as well. This is almost done, it just needs its face. I put the eyes on first and then outlined the mask. Gave it its pupils. It was looking a little flat, so I added some shines to the pupils. Put my signature on the back here. And here is my custom Inkling squishy. This was a lot of work. I essentially created every single aspect of it from scratch. The main event is definitely the custom shape that I had to cut out, but I think the paint job turned out pretty cute too. Puffy paint does dry pretty firm, and I think because I added just so many layers and it like sunk so deep into the foam, this squishy is pretty firm. I had a hard time filming the final results because I couldn't really squish into it. I'm pretty proud of how this came out, even if it's not necessarily a soft squishy. Here are my custom Splatoon squishies. These are my first custom squishies from a video game that I didn't already have pre-made like shapes from, because like the Squish Me brand makes video game inspired squishies, so it's like I've had all of my previous videos, I've kind of had something to work with, but these I had to get creative as to what I could like turn the squishies I already have into. And with the squid specifically, it was so specific that I had to make it by scratch, but I think this kind of pushed my creativity. I'm super excited to be adding these to my collection. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.